Hello, it's Nell, and today we are continuing on with the Bromeliad series. We've already had the Acmea fasciata, the Tillandsia cyanea, and now it's time for the Guzmania. So stick around, I'm going to tell you how to take care of this plant and how to keep it looking good. Now, just like there are quite a few Acmeas, there are quite a few Tillandsias, there are quite a few different species of Guzmanias also, but the one that I'm going to talk about today is the one that is commonly found, the Guzmania lingulata. I think the common name is like star plant, like this is scarlet star plant, but I'm not quite sure. We just always called it Guzmania when I worked in the trade because it is the most readily available one. And what makes this one so cool is that it has different flower colors. Unlike the Acmea, fasciata, which is the pink one, this one comes in red, orange, yellow, pink, and shades of pink. And that there's a plum. I don't know if I've forgotten anything. And actually this is the flower head. It's not actually the flowers, but this is what gives it the color, and that's what sets it aside from some of the other bromeliads. Also, it has this glossy green foliage that many people find attractive. All right, I'm going to give a little close-up on the flower head here. Here are the flowers in there. They're inside there, and they open up to be a white. So you want to buy one that still has some of those flowers that haven't opened up at all or that are about to open, and that way yours will last a lot longer. Because if the flowers are all already spent, then the flower head is not going to last as long either. Now, first up is light or exposure. If you're going to have this plant for the long haul and you want to keep it looking good, you want to keep it healthy, you want the flowers to open up, encourage flowering, then you want nice bright light, as bright as possible, like an east or a west exposure, that nice natural light. If you're having an event and you just want it for like a couple weeks or something, low light is just fine. But what is going to make it the happiest, make it look the best, is that nice, bright, natural light. But no direct sun. Direct hot sun will cause it to burn. On to watering here. And this one, the Guzmania, like the Acmea, has a tank also. A tank or a vase or an urn. It's this part down in here, and that's part of the way that they collect the water in nature. And so what you want to do is you want to put a little bit of water in there, like an inch or two. Now you don't want to put too much water in the vase indoors because it can cause it to rot out, but you do want to keep a little bit in there. And you can also water the growing medium also of the plant. This part down here, there's a yellow jacket. This one just happens to be planted in sphagnum moss. I prefer bark, but you can give it a good watering, let the water drain through, and then water it again in like a month or two, depending on the temperatures. Now in those winter months when it's cooler and darker, you will need to water less. You don't want the plant to rot out, so just be mindful of that. And if you have hard water that has a lot of minerals, salts and that kind of thing in it, then you will need to use either distilled or purified water, especially for keeping the water in the tank here. Now, I have never fertilized my bromeliads, but if you feel the need to fertilize yours, you would want to use a food that's specifically formulated for bromeliads or air plants because they get their nutrients not through the soil but through the air. So it's a whole different bag. I could use this all-purpose orchid food. I do feed my orchids, and it's a very close formulation to what a bromeliad would like. And if I were to fertilize it, I would mix it up at half strength into a spray bottle, and I would spray it on the foliage. I would probably also put a little bit on the surface of the plant too, again, of the growing medium, I mean, because bromeliads don't have an extensive root system. What the root does is it mainly anchors them to whatever they're growing on. So it would anchor them to a rock, a shrub, a tree. It's not like a normal plant where the roots grow and spread. So it's a little bit different way to fertilize. And don't put the fertilizer in the tank either. I was told that by a grower because the fertilizers have salts in them and you don't want the salts to build up in the tank of the plant. The tank or the vase of the urn, whatever you prefer to call it. And something I want to add in about the fertilizing is that you don't want to fertilize it in the fall or the winter months. If you need to fertilize your bromeliad, be sure to do it in either this spring or this summer. And as usual, if there's anything I've forgotten or if you want more details in written form, be sure to visit the blog post that goes along with this video. There will be a link down below so you can refer to that. Now on to the growing medium. Because these are epiphytes, they need excellent drainage. In nature, in the subtropics and the tropics, the rains come and the rain just washes off and it wets the plant and it wets the roots and then it just dries. So you don't want it to stay wet at all, soppingly wet. So you would want to use something like an orchid bark. You could use a small orchid bark, a medium, a large, you know, the size is not all that much of an issue. You could use a cymbidium orchid mix, or I've oftentimes done an orchid bark and cocoa coir mix. Or you could also do, if you were short on orchid bark, you could do orchid bark and potting soil. But if you throw potting soil in the mix, you just have to be careful because that holds water more. So the orchid mix is what I prefer. This one just happens to be planted in sphagnum moss. That's how the grower grows it. For me, I think that sphagnum moss is a little trickier because it's either stays wet or it's dry. I prefer the bark, so I might eventually transplant these into bark. And in terms of repotting, you probably won't have to repot yours unless you're removing the pups, but we'll get onto that soon. But their root systems are smaller, so unless it's in a tiny pot or you're propagating it, you most likely won't need to repot it. In terms of propagating, you do it by removing the pups. And this one already has pups on it, even though it's still in flower. I found that the Guzmanias do pup a little bit more readily and earlier than the other ones do. So there's a pup there, and that's a pretty good size. I might wait till it gets a little bit bigger, and then I would remove it off the mother plant. There's another pup there too. But I always like to leave the pups on until the flowers are completely spent. And you could either plant these pups up in a growing mix, or you could wrap them in moss and attach them to bark or driftwood. If you're unsure about removing those pups, you can just leave them on the mother plant and you can wait till the flower stalk completely dries out and dies, and then remove it, and then the mother plant will actually eventually start to die out. So after it is completely gone, then you can cut back that foliage and you can just leave the pups to develop off the base of the mother plant. Because if you don't have any experience with bromeliads, if you've never grown them, and after flowering, if the plant dies, it is not your fault. It is just the natural cycle that the plant goes through. It dies, the mother plant dies, and then the babies live on. By the way, if you remove the pups and you propagate them, you probably won't get them flowering for at least 3 years because it does take them a little while to flower. So we'll move on to humidity and temperature. Even though they are native to the tropics and subtropics, they can stand the dryness in our homes. The Guzmanias I found are really susceptible to brown tips on the ends. And it's hard to show you because this one came from the grower, from the garden center or the nursery I bought it at. There is a brown tip there. It's just the nature of the plant. These have actually been cut. I guess they were cut in the nursery to cut the brown tips off. I don't do that. I don't mind them. But if your home is especially dry, then you will want to mist it maybe once a week, you know. It's going to appreciate a nice spray. And you don't want to ever drench the flower or the flower head either. I actually sprayed it. I did not mean to. I meant to spray the foliage instead. And that will really help it out. Now, in terms of being safe for pets, to the best of my understanding, what I have read and what I have been told is that Guzmanias, like the other bromeliads, are safe for both cats and dogs. But these crunchy leaves cats love, and they can chew on them and make them sick. It's not going to poison them at all, but it could upset their stomach. So if you've got a kitty cat who loves to chew on the leaves of plants, you might want to try and keep it out of their reach, or at least be able to keep an eye on the cat and the plant. So if you're a beginning gardener and you're new to bromeliads, I think you should give the Guzmania a go because it is a really easy flowering house plant to take care of, and it's also very long lasting. The flower is, as I said, the flower can last up to 4 months long. Up next in the Bromeliad series is my personal favorite, the Neurogelia. As always, I thank you for watching, and come back. I have a lot more videos coming your way. You know, I have, what, three more Bromeliad ones, so those are coming up really soon. And I thank you for all your likes, your comments, and your subscribes. I really, really appreciate them. Now, let's get into our outdoor gardens or our indoor gardens and make our worlds a more beautiful place. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.